Baltimore ravaged by juvenile crime over the holiday weekend.
Houston and Patterson, possible armed robberies.
It's going to be about 5 or 6 juveniles.
A look at the string of violence and the concerns over how state lawmakers will address the crisis. Plus, there have now been more than 10,000 stolen cars in Baltimore this year. What victims say the city needs to do right now to stop thieves.
This stuff matters.
Then how current Mayor Brandon Scott could close the gap as the race for mayor heats up.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 4.
We're following 3 big stories in a city in crisis. What we're learning about multiple groups of kids accused of crimes over Thanksgiving weekend.
Our state lawmaker is going to put juvenile crime on the back burner again. The growing concerns they're not taking the youth crime crisis seriously.
First, the suspected killer of a restaurant manager in Little Italy pleads guilty. Good evening, I'm Kai Jackson.
And I'm Mary Bubala. Back in January of 2022, La Scala restaurant manager Chesley Patterson was killed along Eastern Avenue in Little Italy. Fox 45's Keith Daniels joins us now with the latest developments in the case against his suspected killer. Keith?
Well, Mary and Kai, Patterson's shooting death resonated across the community here in Little Italy. And tonight, the guilty plea of his accused killer, prosecutors say Samuel Wise Jr. pleaded guilty to first-degree murder, first-degree escape, and gun charges. Now, police arrested Wise in April last year. Today, his guilty plea and prison sentence for Chelsea Patterson's murder. Patterson was the manager at the prominent La Scala restaurant in Little Italy. He was shot and killed in January 2022 during what police called a robbery spree. Now, a surveillance camera at a corner store on Eastern Avenue captured the crime on video. In the video obtained by Fox 45 News, Patterson is seen walking from his car. Then later, when he returned to his vehicle, gunshots. After that, at a vigil for Patterson, loved ones expressed anger and frustration over the killing.
Yes, I'm pissed off about Chesley getting killed for no reason. But the reason I'm pissed off about him because I know him. He was close to my heart. But there's a lot of good people getting killed every day. But if you don't start doing something about that, it's never going to. It's pushing us out of the city.
Well, Wise was sentenced to life with all but 50 years suspended, followed by 3 years of supervised probation. When he's released for the murder charge, he was sentenced concurrently to 20 years and 5 years for the other 2 charges. We're live now in Little Italy. Keith Daniels, Fox 45 News.
We have continuing coverage right now on the juvenile crime crisis across the state.
The holiday weekend didn't stop some young offenders from causing problems across Baltimore.
We have team coverage of the fight against juvenile crime. Alexa Ashwell has new information coming in from Baltimore police. Alexa.
Yes, Kai, Mary, the latest arrest data released just now by Baltimore police shows the department has arrested 15 juveniles for various crimes since last Wednesday. And for some of these juveniles, this isn't their first or even second arrest.
Armed robberies,
1201 North Patterson Park, 10 rounds,
carjackings, and car thefts.
I'm watching 4 little kids, maybe 15, 16, jump out of a car 1:30 in the morning.
Crimes that unfortunately are known to be committed by young people. And here in Baltimore, showing little to no sign of slowing.
The behavior by the kids is outrageous.
On the eve of Thanksgiving, police were called to Baltimore's Patterson Park after a victim says they were robbed at gunpoint by a group of juveniles.
The victim is claiming that the 4 juveniles, high schoolers, dressing all black, went towards the park. They utilized a handgun.
Just days later, a rash of armed robberies hit the Pigtown area.
It's going to be about 5 or 6 juveniles. They're going to be wearing masks.
The majority of the suspects were told juveniles.
One of them brandished a knife.
When you look into those kids' eyes, they do not see fear.
No fear, many say, due to a lack of consequence.
If BPD says, well, we're arresting them, and you see that, on the report that, that they're, or at least they were in custody and they were taken downtown, so you know that. DJS says that, we're giving them services and look at our chart and here's how great this is working. But yet down here, there's a lot of instances with our own eyes, with our cameras, with whatever, we use, whatever evidence. It seems like there are kids slipping through those cracks.
There have been more than 10,000 car thefts reported in Baltimore so far this year. Last week, BPD revealed about 38% of these thefts were committed by juveniles. The breakdown even more concerning, with about 2/3 of those suspects reported to the Department of Juvenile Services and only 5% serving time in a DJS facility.
Juveniles who are accused of committing violent crimes, like carjacking, should be detained for some period of time until their case can be adjudicated, and they're not.
Now, in one of the arrest cases just announced by police say they took 7 juveniles into custody for auto theft, and one of the teens had been arrested 8 times prior. More on that at 5. For now, reporting live outside police headquarters, Alexa Ashwell, Fox 45 News.
Alexa, thank you. Well, all year, Baltimore has been struggling to get a handle on juvenile crime. 2 of the young people arrested in connection with the Brooklyn Day mass shooting in July were wearing ankle monitors, one of them just 14 years old. Those arrests raising questions about how DJS tracks children under its supervision. 16-year-old Khalil Jones was shot and killed during an attempted robbery on Bowleys Lane. Police say he had been arrested for an attempted carjacking over the summer. And last month, 2 15-year-olds were charged for a shooting in front of Carver High School. Police say both of the teens and a 16-year-old Carver student were hurt when they fired at each other.
It's not just violent crime. Baltimore police say children account for 38% of car thefts this year. Only 2/3 of those suspects are reported to the Department of Juvenile Services, and only 5% serve time in a DJS facility. Police say without accountability, the same kids are repeatedly committing crimes. Fox 45 News has heard from parents who are desperately calling for change.
I had no awareness that he was doing all these types of activities. I mean, something's got to give, because like I said, the rate he going, he not going to be here. The rate he keep going, he needs more discipline, more structure.
And the youth crime crisis extends far beyond Baltimore. Fox 45 News has heard from more than a dozen top prosecutors in Maryland who are calling for change in Annapolis, saying juvenile justice laws leave their hands tied when it comes to holding young people accountable. Those prosecutors represent 5.4 million people, about 87% of the state's population. They take issue with 2 laws: the Juvenile Justice Reform Act, which prevents children under 13 from facing most criminal charges, and the Child Interrogation Protection Act, stating police cannot question any child as a suspect nor witness without notifying parents and getting approval from an attorney.
Seeing like a revolving door, the same juvenile offenders over and over again, coming in the door and then going back out the door to continue to engage in their nefarious activities. There's not a whole lot we can do about it because we're hamstrung by the laws that are in place.
You can protect the child and also protect society. If we deter that communication, we inhibit our ability to address crime.
If we don't do something to hold these young people accountable, they will continue to run and almost have lawlessness in our cities. And we can't have that.
Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost continues our live team coverage. Mackenzie, you've been talking with lawmakers and prosecutors about the upcoming 2024 legislative session. What are you learning?
Well, Kai, right now it's unclear exactly what plans will be discussed during that legislative session. We know that there was going to be another House Judiciary Committee hearing scheduled. That was announced at the end of the last one. Now this one was scheduled to take place next Tuesday at 1 o'clock. Earlier today, I spoke with Delegate Robin Grammer. He's a Republican from Baltimore County, and he says given what we're hearing in communities all across Maryland, he believes lawmakers will be left with no choice but to make some adjustments to the current juvenile justice laws.
I think this issue particularly has gotten so bad that everybody started to feel it in their own communities, that they're going to be on the same page largely. It's really at a boiling point for us.
But what those changes will be really remains the biggest question. We know that lawmakers in the Senate have said publicly that they're not interested in making sweeping repeals of some of these juvenile justice laws. So it'll likely come down to some tweaks that will have to be made in compromise so that everyone can get on the same page and send these potential changes to the governor for a possible signature if and when that time comes. Now, going back to that House Judiciary Committee, again, that's scheduled for next Tuesday at 1 o'clock. The full schedule hasn't been released yet, so it's unclear who exactly will be testifying, but we do know it will take place in person. Kai?
And Mackenzie, what about the governor's plan for addressing juvenile crime? What is Governor Moore saying?
Another big question. The governor has said time and time again he plans to unveil a juvenile crime plan, but the public has yet to see it. And this is something where Delegate Grammer says he believes the governor should be taking the lead on and setting his agenda first.
You have to hold the governor's feet to the fire. He's a nice guy, but he's a little bit out to pasture on this issue.
We've questioned the governor about when the public will see his plan, but so far we haven't gotten a clear answer. And I did just speak with another state's attorney about his concerns and what he wants to see lawmakers tackle in January. We'll have his responses coming up at 5. We're live in the newsroom. Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
Mackenzie, thank you. And that brings us to our question of the day. Do you want your elected leaders to hold young people accountable, those who are accused of committing crimes? We just opened the poll. To make your voice heard, head to foxbaltimore.com.
An 18-year-old was shot in West Baltimore this morning. Happened along West Mosier Street near Bradish Avenue just after 3 a.m. Police say the victim was hit in the leg and the back. He was taken to the hospital and his condition not clear at this time. Anybody with any information should contact Baltimore police. Now, this year, 584 people have survived being shot in Baltimore. 240 have been killed in the city, although Baltimore is on pace to finish this year with fewer than 300 homicides for the first time in 9 years. Continued incidents of crimes committed by juveniles and the epidemic of car thefts has residents on edge.
There was a deadly crash in Anne Arundel County. Police say 54-year-old Kevin Chris was hit while crossing Ritchie Highway in Glen Burnie on Thanksgiving. Police say a 77-year-old man hit him. Police say Chris was wearing all black clothing and was not using a crosswalk. The accident is still under investigation.
Mayor Scott and Sheila Dixon trading blows in the media as the Baltimore mayoral race heats up. We talked live with a political analyst on what we should expect next and whether it's possible for a third candidate to challenge these top two contenders.
Some Baltimore residents tell Fox 45 they're not sure if police will come when they call for help. The growing concerns over police response.
The mayor says car thefts are down, but victims say it's not good enough. The impact the surge in stolen vehicles is having on Baltimore residents.
And the first commute after the big holiday weekend looks like temperatures going to be chilly, falling through the 40s and 30s. Some of the coldest air of the season thus far coming our way, maybe even a couple of flakes. I'm breaking down when that could occur in my Weather Authority forecast.
Fox 45 News, winner of 16 2022 Regional Emmy Awards, more than all other Baltimore news stations combined.
There has to be accountability.
Police say more than 10,000 vehicles have been stolen in Baltimore this year. That's roughly 208 vehicles stolen each week.
That's right. Despite the mayor and police commissioner announcing new strategies to tackle auto thefts earlier this month, the crime isn't slowing down.
Olivia Dance joins us live after speaking with victims of auto theft who are demanding the city hold thieves accountable. Olivia?
Well, Mary and Kai, we spoke with one man who had a wheel lock on his steering wheel very similar to this right here, and his car was still stolen over the weekend. Now, the Baltimore Police Department has given out more than 3,000 steering wheel locks to residents just like this lock here, but we know that these thefts are still happening.
When I looked out the window at 6 o'clock, my car was gone.
Over the weekend, John Floyd had his car stolen for the second time.
On my camera is 2 guys standing at my car, attempting to break in. I had a steering wheel locking system on it. How they got through it, I do not know.
The thieves weren't deterred by his steering wheel lock and security cameras.
The criminals are emboldened. They don't care. They just don't.
Fox 45 News employee Jimmy Mathis also knows the struggle of having a car stolen.
So right before Thanksgiving, last Sunday, my car, which is a Volkswagen Passat, was stolen a couple blocks from the station.
He called Baltimore police. They didn't show up, but they took a police report, and within just 2 hours after his car was stolen,
The vehicle was involved in an accident. They called me back and they told me that it would be at City Impound.
the police told Mathis that 3 juveniles had taken his car, and after visiting the City Impound lot, Mathis says his car is no longer drivable.
It's not just property theft. It's not. If you don't own your home, your car is the most valuable thing that you probably own. And it's not a luxury. It's the way that you get your kids to school, that you go to your job.
According to Baltimore police data, there has been 10.3 thousand auto thefts so far this year, including attempted auto thefts. Earlier this month, Mayor Brandon Scott and Police Commissioner Richard Worley announced new initiatives to address the auto theft crisis.
Our work really falls into 4 main buckets. 1, prevention, 2, deterrence, 3, enforcement, and 4, continued legal action against negligent manufacturers.
But victims of these thefts say the message to thieves needs to be stronger.
The city has a basic responsibility to protect its citizens. And part of that is their property.
The victims are left paying for the thieves' actions.
I'm the victim, but I'm being treated like the villain. I mean, these guys go around stealing these cars each and every day, tearing people's cars up, and we got to dig in our pockets for something that they done destructed. It's not right. And the city needs to do something.
Now, I reached out to Baltimore police this afternoon, and they sent me a statement which reads in part, BPD and Mayor Scott's administration continue to work aggressively in addressing the surge in auto thefts. This includes a 21% reduction in auto thefts in the last 28 days. Yesterday, BPD arrested 7 juveniles for auto theft related offenses. In addition to these arrests, 14 auto theft arrests have been made in the past week. And despite their efforts, we know that auto thefts are up this year compared to last year. For now, reporting live in Baltimore, I'm Olivia Dance, Fox 45 News.
Olivia, thank you. If you have a story about a stolen car or know someone who's been impacted by the spike in auto thefts, we'd like to hear about it. Scan the QR code on your screen and tell us what happened, or send us an email at news@foxbaltimore.com.
All right, time to check our weather. Jonathan is here. A beautiful fall day for
Yeah.
our Monday. A good transition after a holiday weekend.
Yeah, we'll take it. A little bit of sun, a little cool, but tomorrow, different story.
that's what
Going to
I
be
hear.
super cold coming our way. So some of the coldest air of the season thus far going to be working in. So get ready. Going to feel a lot like the holiday season next couple of days, but it's only a brief visit coming our way. Temperature now is at 44, winds out of the west-northwest at 15, even a little bit of a wind chill now at 37. We may be lucky to hit high temperatures like this wind chill at 37 for tomorrow. Some sunshine outside right now, but by tomorrow, that colder air that you see out to the west, that's going to be rushing in. Temperatures right now all in the 30s, 40s, 50s. But you take a look there at Oakland, that's signs of the much colder air that's going to be working in. So this is what's going to come toward us tomorrow. Maybe it won't be in the 20s for highs around here, but likely 30s to near 40 is the best we'll do. Right now, the wind chill's at 37 here in Baltimore, 38 at Laurel, 42 for back to work on a Monday after a long holiday weekend here at Annapolis, 38 at Chestertown and 38 at Elkton. So at least the travel conditions are okay today, but does look like we're going to be seeing the potential some much colder air moving in. For now, HD radar nice and quiet, but we take a wider look at things. You can see signs of the colder air coming in. Where do you see it? Well, off the Great Lakes. This is from the colder air out of Canada coming over the relatively warmer Great Lakes waters. You can see the lake effect snow showers and flurries all over portions of New York State, western Pennsylvania, as well as into Michigan. So that's signs of the Arctic chill moving in. We're going to call it burr and blustery as we head into tomorrow because it's this type of air that's moving toward us. Of course, it will moderate a little bit, but these temperatures in the teens and 20s probably, again, going to equate to only 30s for us, maybe 40 for high temperatures tomorrow. Overnight tonight, there's your cold. It looks like a good hard freeze coming for most of us into early tomorrow morning, 20s to near 30, maybe even some low to mid 20s by early tomorrow morning. Could be even colder yet for tomorrow night. And notice this on our future scan computer model. Some of the blue, that could be a flurry or a light snow shower into tomorrow afternoon. Some of those lake effect snow streamers could make it this far south that we get, again, a couple of flakes dancing across our skies. Otherwise, some sunshine and blustery for tomorrow, 41, 44 on Wednesday, and then a big warm up after some cold temperatures Tuesday into Wednesday. Thursday, we're back in the 50s, 50s near 60. Friday could be again in the 50s near 60 all the way through next Monday, turning unsettled as we head through Friday on into early next week.
Jonathan, thank you. Should teens be punished like adults if they're committing adult crimes? The demands from some Baltimore residents who say youth violence is out of control. For the first time in decades, a congressman could get the boot. What an expulsion vote for one congressman means for the entire nation. This week, all eyes are on Capitol Hill as Congress could kick a member out of its ranks. Criminally indicted Congressman George Santos could lose his House seat. This after a months-long investigation from the House Ethics Committee found Santos used campaign funds for personal expenses like Botox, luxury retailers, and adult websites. The Republican majority protected Santos in a previous expulsion attempts, but now more members of his own party are saying he has to go.
I think you will see more and more members voting for that, and it'll be maybe a close vote, but I think he will be expelled if he doesn't resign. I hope he resigns before we get to that point.
Santos's fellow Republican Congressman Michael Guest, the Ethics Committee chair, who is the one who introduced this expulsion resolution, giving it even more weight. It will be a tough vote for Republicans as they hold a slim House majority and will likely lose a special election race. Meantime, debate continues over a new aid package for Israel and Ukraine. According to a Punchbowl News survey of staffers on Capitol Hill, 77% say their boss would support it. There's a partisan divide, with 97% of Democratic staffers to 59% of Republican staffers saying that's the case. Even so, there are some speed bumps, namely what to do about the southern border.
I think it'd be very difficult to get it done by the end of the year. And the impediment currently is the White House policy on the southern border. The White House in this package, including it as a national security package, recognizing that the southern border is a threat, put in funding, but it's going to need policy changes.
Well, House Republicans passed a standalone Israeli aid bill earlier this month, but it's unlikely to move forward without including funding for Ukraine. That bill also includes cuts for IRS funding, which is considered a no-go for most Democrats and some Republicans. Republican primary frontrunner Donald Trump says his party should try again to eliminate the Affordable Care Act. He says in a post on Truth Social, the cost of Obamacare is out of control, and he's considering alternatives. It is a risky strategy for the party, which tried and failed to repeal the legislation and suffered at the 2022 midterms because of it. President Biden's campaign jumped on the suggestion, saying in a statement Trump would be ripping away health insurance for 40 million Americans. Is it really a two-horse race for Baltimore's next mayor? Breaking down why Brandon Scott and Sheila Dixon have such a commanding lead.
New accounts of life in Hamas captivity. I'm Atrell Nashar with what family of the released hostages say they ate, where they slept, and the healing they have ahead of them.
Well, Baltimore's mayoral primary is months away, and the polling leaders, Brandon Scott and Sheila Dixon, are now taking shots at each other.
Dixon criticizing Scott's leadership on issues like crime, public services, and more, while Scott says choosing her would be like choosing a failed time from Baltimore's past over a brighter future. Well, tonight we are joined by political analyst John Deedy to break down what we could see next in the mayoral race. John, thanks so much for talking with us tonight.
You're welcome.
Yeah, John, the candidates, as I know you observe, are openly criticizing each other. What do you make of this?
Let's put it to you this way for the audience. You work at a job and someone's trying to take your job or get you fired. You will fight like hell to keep your job. So really, when we see this type of stuff, and we're going to see more of it the next few months, it's really a battle for a job. And that's, if you look at it that way, it makes a lot of sense. And you're going to see more of these type of attacks, and probably both of the candidates really trying to get under the other's skin.
And John, according to the most recent Goucher poll, Mayor Scott is trailing Sheila Dixon. What can we expect to see from Mayor Scott to close that polling gap? And what will Dixon do in hopes of increasing that lead? Again, we're just a couple of months now away from that May primary.
I think you're going to see a couple things. January 1st is a big day. That's when we close the books on the 2023 murder rate. It's going to probably drop by about 50. The mayor promised it would get under 300 year one. Hasn't happened year one. But he can now basically hang a star on that and say, look, it took a little longer, but we're making progress. You know, there's an expression, perception versus reality. And the perception right now is things are hell in a handbasket. But when he uses those numbers and touts them, it may give people the reality dose of, yeah, things are getting better. The other thing I think he has going for him is baby. He's going to be a new father very soon. And voters love those type of things, those type of stories. I'm sure in advertising, he's going to prominently showcase his new child. And I think he's also going to use the child, and I would do this too, is showing Baltimore's future. And I think that that could be a good advantage for him heading into the primary.
Yeah, so trying to make a connection with voters if that indeed happens, John. So let's kind of examine that poll a little further. The same poll showed Dixon and Scott have a significant lead over the other field. We know Bob Wallace is a part of that field. 39% say they back Dixon, 27% back current Mayor Scott, and 23% are hoping for a third candidate. Does anybody else even have a shot, John? And there's this dichotomy. Right. You get voters saying they're not happy with the way the city is going, but they still back the same people. So there is kind of a strange dichotomy here, isn't it?
That's a good point. And I think part of it is this. Baltimore historically likes to elect names they know, elected officials. I remember years ago, David Warnock poured thousands of dollars into a race for mayor and got 9% of the vote. And names you know means generally an elected leader in the community. So that's part of the problem. This election, in many ways, is like the rerun we're going to also have next year, Trump and Biden, where everyone's saying, come on, is there somebody else out there? And the truth is there isn't anybody out there. And basically, this is the situation where here's the food, you got to eat it, you don't have a choice. So I really don't see anyone else emerging. You know, Bob Wallace, you know, he got 20% of the vote in a general, but that may have been a situation where people were saying, well, I don't like Brandon Scott, so I'm going to vote for this candidate. If you want to be a serious candidate as, you know, Bob Wallace or even Wendy Bozell, who's running, you've got to pour a hell of a lot of money into the race. You've got to get on TV because you're not a legitimate candidate in my book until you're running television ads, because that's how the voters see you as legitimate. Twitter is just for the polarization of both parties. It's not a real thing.
Yeah, it takes money to get those ads on. All right, John Deedy, thank you so much for joining us tonight with this analysis. We appreciate it.
You're welcome.
They're going to be wearing masks. All of them have black tops on, some sort of puffy jacket, sweatshirts, different colored pants. They all ran east on Washington Boulevard towards MLK. One of them brandished a knife.
Well, the holiday weekend proved to be a violent one for Baltimore City after police tried to catch suspects involved in a series of robberies across southwest Baltimore. The crimes have officers scrambling to solve them, leaving the community on edge. And police say the majority of the suspects were juveniles.
And it comes just days after police say 4 teens went on the attack in Patterson Park, and a little over a month before lawmakers meet to discuss the current juvenile justice laws. Fox 45's Vincent Hill reports.
Friday night in the Pigtown neighborhood, a familiar 911 call to Baltimore police.
It's going to be about 5 or 6 juveniles. They're going to be wearing masks.
An armed robbery. The suspects, juveniles.
One of them brandished a knife.
Before that man was robbed at knife point.
Does it sound like the same kids that stole that bike on Paca?
A lady was robbed a mile away in the 600 block of Paca Street. The robberies in the area, an ongoing issue according to Baltimore police.
I'm going to check over around like Camden Crossing, Scott and Boulevard, Scott and Pratt. They hit us over there last week.
Fox 45 has shown you video after video after video of juveniles wreaking havoc across the city.
You look into those kids' eyes, they do not see fear.
Paulette Carroll lives in the Pigtown neighborhood.
This is happening everywhere.
And like many Baltimore residents, she's fed up with the juvenile crime crisis.
Somebody needs to take the charge for this. You know, these kids need to be held accountable because they doing adult things.
Marcus Strider of the Guardian Angels agrees.
You're blaming everybody but the criminal and who's accountable.
Strider calling out the current juvenile laws.
This is insanity. This is madness. This is repetitive. Yeah, this is ridiculous.
And with over a month before lawmakers meet to tackle the problem, Strider says the worst is yet to come.
Everybody's born to know right from wrong. But if you keep letting it go, it's going to escalate. So now that it's escalated to a point where it's a national embarrassment, don't be surprised because this is what you got.
Vincent Hill, Fox 45 News.
Well, police response times have been a serious concern, an issue for Baltimore residents. Some are accusing the police department of not taking some crimes seriously enough. One of those local leaders sounded the alarm. That's Eric Costello, who says he's seen multiple instances like this one where a man was robbed while driving a scooter. Despite calling police and security footage of that theft, Costello says the victim's calls for help went ignored for hours.
Our residents deserve quality and reliable city services and neighborhoods where we all feel safe, regardless of whether or not it's an election year. Day in and day out, I hear from constituents who want basics like trash and recycling that is picked up on time, roads that are paved, and police and city agencies that are responsive to our residents.
And just last week, Fox 45 News heard from a woman who says the police did not come when she needed them most. After a group of people broke into her home, she locked herself in a bedroom with her children and called for help. It took officers more than an hour to arrive, despite her telling them the criminals were in her home during that call.
An hour police response time is deplorable. It's just horrible. It does not make me feel comfortable living here knowing that that's how long it takes to get help when you really need it. So at that point.
The following segment is sponsored by Gilman and Bedigian.
While there are concerns over police response times, there is no law on how quickly police must respond to urgent calls. This morning, Fox 45's Tom Rogers spoke with an attorney about what it would take for that to change.
You expect to get immediate response when you call 911, especially if there are burglars in your house. But what can you do if police take an hour to show or they don't show up at all? What is your recourse as a taxpayer? A founding partner at Gilman and Bedigian Trial Attorneys, Charles Gilman, says if you are frustrated with the lack of officers working or the slow response time, your best recourse is to call your local elected leaders.
Well, Tom, we gotta work on our elected officials because under the law, we don't really have any. There's no obligation under the law for the police to get to you in a certain amount of time in Maryland as the law stands right now. So we have to hit the legislator, and specifically in the city, or the mayor's office, the executive branch, to hire more officers to speed up the response time. There is no legal duty owed to you specifically that the police respond in a certain amount of time.
It seems like this slow response is really just going to push people to take matters into their own hands here, which then could cause even more issues in the court system and also in the criminal system.
Absolutely, I agree with you 100%. People are going to start, arming themselves, that type of thing, and then you're right. You're going to end up with, two defendants because you're going to have the person that broke into the house and the person that shot the burglar trying to protect his or her castle and standing their ground. It's just going to create a mess.
And Gilman also says there have been cases won on negligence before against BPD, but that is only when officers actually arrive. If they did not show up, there's no legal recourse currently within Maryland's law system. Tom Rogers, Fox 45 News.
As more of Hamas's hostages are released, we are getting videos like these. Children who have been held captive by the terror group for more than 7 weeks finally coming home, being reunited in these videos. Two 9-year-old girls and a 13-year-old, some of the youngest hostages taken by Hamas, are reuniting with their loved ones. Now, it comes as Israel and Hamas agreed to extend their humanitarian truce by 2 days. Today, Hamas released 11 more hostages. The Red Cross and Israeli Defense Forces say those 11 hostages just arrived in Israel within the last hour. Over the first 3 days of the pause in fighting, Hamas released 58 hostages, and Israel released 117 Palestinian prisoners.
National correspondent Atra El-Nashar has a look at what comes next in the effort to get all of the remaining hostages home.
As hostages are released, we're learning about the conditions they endured and still exist for those who remain in Hamas captivity.
Very little food, very little water. They came back very, very slim.
Ahal Besserai's teenage niece and nephew were released on Saturday. He says they were held in the room of a house with another woman. Family of other released hostages also say their meals were scarce, often just bread and rice. Meager nutrition, especially for the elderly and children. Like 9-year-old Emily Hand, seen here.
Lost a lot of weight from my face and body, but generally doing better than we expected.
Accounts of sleeping on rows of plastic chairs and sometimes waiting more than an hour to use a bathroom. In late October, 85-year-old Yoheved Lifshitz and 79-year-old Narit Cooper were released. Hamas says due to their health, Lifshitz said while they were held, a doctor would visit them every few days with medication. But for 84-year-old Elma Avraham,
my mother did not deserve to come back like this.
Her daughter says she was severely medically neglected, left without necessary medication, returning home wounded and unconscious.
She arrived with a pulse of 40, with a body temperature of 28 degrees.
Equivalent to about 82 degrees Fahrenheit. Then there's the mental anguish. Psychoanalyst Merav Roth says trauma of being held hostage is compounded by the violence of October 7th. Treatment, she says, can't wait.
That's what we do with post-traumatic stress disorder. We take care immediately because the first days are crucial.
As some of these hostages come home, they're learning for the first time their loved ones were killed back on October 7th or are still being held hostage by Hamas. In Washington, I'm Atra El-Nashar.
The suspect charged with shooting 3 Palestinian students in Vermont over the weekend has pleaded not guilty. James Eaton is facing 3 charges of attempted murder. According to an affidavit, police say Eaton shot the students Saturday night while they were out for a walk. All 3 suffered gunshot wounds. Eaton is being held without bail.
The holiday season is a hot time for deals and also a peak time for cyber criminals. I'm Angela Brown in Washington, D.C. Cybersecurity experts break down the threat to your job and also your wallet.
And if you want to burn off some of that extra turkey from over the weekend, well, it looks like some outdoor exercise is going to be chilly this evening. 5 p.m. temperatures, a little blustery, 44, 38 at 6 and 36 at 7. But this is going to be warm compared to what we're going to see over the next day or so. I'm going to let you know how cold things are going to get. That's in my Weather Authority forecast.
Maryland lawmakers are weeks away from reconvening for the General Assembly, and come January, they'll be facing pressure to scale back landmark legislation that brought big increases in education spending in the state. That legislation, known as the Kirwan Plan, pumps billions of dollars into public education, but county executives across the state say it's crushing their budgets. When state lawmakers passed Kirwan in 2021, they didn't pass a funding mechanism. Now several county executives, including Bob Castley from Harford County, have expressed concern, asking the governor, Senate president, and Speaker of the House to revisit the legislation.
I think I speak for all of our county executives in saying that our people can't deal with the financial impact that the Kirwan as it stands is placed upon our taxpayers and our citizens. So we've got to make adjustments.
Well, tonight at 10 o'clock, three main concerns county leaders want the state to address and what leadership in Annapolis has already said when it comes to making changes to the Kirwan Plan. While many shoppers are buying online, as they have been doing for years now, cyber criminals are busy trying to steal your information and infiltrate companies. The National Desk, Angela Brown, explains.
Security Magazine says cyber attacks increased during the holiday season, and threats like ransomware are up 30%. High-profile data breaches during the holidays at places where you shop. Remember the Target data breach 2013? The credit and debit card information of about 40 million customers stolen. Here's what Target CEO said in 2014 while trying to win back shoppers.
We are completely focused on data security. We've got a great team in place. We've built great systems.
Darktrace, a cybersecurity company, reports 30% more ransomware attacks targeting organizations during the holiday period from 2018 to 2020 compared to the monthly average. What is the number one way these cyber crooks get in?
You know, the number one way that they get in is actually through employees or through contractors who work for them.
Valerie Aubend from Accenture says retailers need to be on the lookout for supply chain weaknesses and cyber criminals setting up fake websites.
They develop legitimate websites that look like the company website, maybe a slight change in that website address. And unfortunately, it's a fake website.
Phony websites used in emails attached to coupons, all to steal your information.
Even if it looks like an email you've subscribed to, even if it looks like a really great deal, you don't want to click on the link.
Reporting in Washington, D.C., I'm Angela Brown.
All right, taking a look outside right now. It's a nice picture of M&T Bank Stadium, but it's an increasingly chilly one. Temperature of 44 here in Baltimore, winds out of the west-northwest at 15, even a wind chill now at 37. Guess what? It's going to get even colder than this by tomorrow. A lot colder. 44 here in Baltimore right now. 41 at Laurel. We're 42 up at Bel Air. A little bit of sunshine, so as the sun is beginning to set now, those sunglasses are going to have to be out on that PM commute home, but in a few minutes the sun will be down below the horizon, and then the temperatures are going to fall. Look at those 20s out at Oakland, 30s at Cumberland, even some wind chill single digits up in ski country at Oakland, not too far from Deep Creek Lake and Wisp Ski Resort. We're at 26 now. At Cumberland, the wind chill in the 30s up and down the 95 corridor, and that will only drop off later on tonight into early tomorrow. HD radar showing a whole batch of lake effect snow showers and flurries. Detroit all the way up into portions of New York State. That's a signature of some cold air coming over the relatively warmer Great Lakes waters. Now, interestingly enough, we may have enough oomph, if you will, in the atmosphere for tomorrow with those northwesterly winds and those snow streamers continuing off the Great Lakes to get a couple of those flurries up and over the Blue Ridge Mountains and maybe around here. So it could be the first flakes of the season for some. Not going to be anything accumulating, but don't be surprised to see some of those flakes flying in the blustery, breezy, cold conditions tomorrow. Take a look at these temperatures, only in the teens, 20s, low 30s off to our north and west. That's what's coming in the wake of our latest weather maker. If you remember the rain yesterday, today's a transitional day. And then tonight, look at these temperatures down into the 20s to near 30. So I'm thinking a hard freeze for most. And then for the day tomorrow, there are the blues. That's that potential of a lake effect snow shower flurry that makes it up and over the mountains. Not going to be a ton here, but there could be a few flakes. Don't be surprised all the way into the afternoon and the early evening. And temperatures struggle tomorrow. I actually lowered the temperature for the forecast with A flurry or two, breezy conditions, high only 37, wind chills in the 20s pretty much all day long tomorrow. 40 for a high on Wednesday. We're back into the 50s for Thursday. Could see a few showers by Friday. Looks like a drier day Saturday. Milder, so that's better. But mid to upper 50s continue all the way through Sunday and into Monday of next week with a chance of some unsettled weather.
All right, Jonathan, thank you. Coming up at 5 o'clock on Fox 45, a look inside our investigation into the Safe Streets program. We push for transparency into the city's flagship gun violence prevention program. And the Ravens pick up a big win in prime time. What Lamar Jackson had to say about the team's performance. Here's a live look at M&T Bank Stadium in Baltimore. The Ravens return to the city after picking up a big win against the LA Chargers. Final score, 20-10. The Ravens remain at the top of the AFC North heading into their bye week. Star QB Lamar Jackson says he couldn't be more proud of his team.
We have tough guys, and we got guys who want to win. They're going to put their heart on the line, on blood, sweat, and tears. That's part of football. And, Ravens known for being a tough team, and those guys showed it.
Tough indeed. The defense really showed out in that game as well. Let's see what fans are saying about this win right now. Look at this. Good morning, Ravens flock. It is Victory Monday. It is indeed. Look at that old Lamar Jackson picture. Hair a lot shorter there. How about this one here? Just want to say Ravens flock got some guys outside of the stadium busting a move, as it were, right? And here we go. Coach John Harbaugh saying, well, we got the one tonight, and I'm proud of the guys for that. So Ravens fans really excited. Well, coming up on Fox 45 News at 5 o'clock, Sports Unlimited's Morgan Adson will join us in studio with new comments from Coach Harbaugh looking ahead to the rest of their season. Coming up at 5 o'clock, the Biden administration introduces new incentives to jumpstart electric vehicle sales, the impact that could have on the economy. Teens accused of committing brazen crimes over the holiday weekend. Fox 45 News is analyzing it and what police can do to stop it.
A chaotic holiday weekend in Baltimore City showing just how severe the juvenile crime crisis is. Fox 45 News demanding solutions to the ongoing problem.
A Baltimore resident falls victim to car theft crisis twice. The efforts from the city to deter the thefts and why critics say it's not working.
Plus, an agreement to continue the ceasefire in the Middle East as more hostages are set free, how they're describing their time being held by Hamas.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 5.
Here's a live look looking at the Inner Harbor in Towson tonight. It's been a chilly and windy start to your work week, and it looks like the cold is here to stay. Thank you for joining us. I'm Kai Jackson.
And I'm Mary Bubala. Tomorrow, we could see the coldest temperatures so far this season with temperatures below freezing.
Let's go right to Chief Meteorologist Jonathan Myers. Jonathan.
Yeah, and Mary Kai, it doesn't look like it's an all-day event below freezing, but we could have temperatures right around 20 degrees by tomorrow night, and into tonight we could get down into the mid-20s. We could only struggle in the 30s for tomorrow afternoon. Take a look at the HD radar, and what do you see here? Well, you see a whole bunch of snow showers that are off to our north and our northwest. This is way up there toward Pittsburgh, Scranton, Pennsylvania. Really lake effect activity. Not expecting a whole lot here out of this in the meantime, but by tomorrow could have a couple of those snow streamers that try to make it up and over the Blue Ridge Mountains and maybe even giving us our first flakes of the season. Right now we're chilly. 41 degrees here in Baltimore, 39 Westminster, but there's the big cold. Look at Oakland. Only at 23 degrees, and the temperatures are on the fall over 24 hours ago from Westminster to Frederick. Today, kind of a transitional day, but look at what happens as we head into tonight. Just a few clouds, and tomorrow, yes, that blue on our computer model, that is a little bit of snow shower and flurry activity. Look at that as the kids get off to school. Westminster, Cockeysville, this computer model says there could be a couple of flurries around. Don't be surprised. Shouldn't be anything accumulating, though. I'm going to let you know if we do have anything that could accumulate in the extended forecast. That's in my Weather Authority forecast in a couple of minutes.
It seems like the issue's gotten so bad that I feel that there's going to be some sort of reform passed.
Fox 45 News demands solutions to the crime crisis in Maryland. The holiday weekend saw a handful of incidents, and now more people are speaking out on current juvenile justice laws.
We have live team coverage tonight covering all the angles of the juvenile crime crisis. Let's begin with Alexa Asheville and some new data from Baltimore police. Alexa?
Yes, Kai Mary, that latest data released by Baltimore police shows 15 juveniles have been arrested for various crimes since last Wednesday. We're going to go through them with you. The most recent just yesterday, police say 7 juveniles were taken into custody, the youngest 12 years old, for car theft in North Baltimore. One of those teens, police say, has been arrested 8 times. Days prior in South Baltimore, police say they took a 14-year-old and 2 15-year-olds into custody for the armed carjacking of a 76-year-old man. One of the teens, they say, has been arrested 3 times before for car theft. Then in Southeast Baltimore, 3 teens were arrested for the armed robbery and assault of a man. That same day, police say they took 2 15-year-olds into custody for drug and handgun violations. One of them, they say, has been arrested in the past for narcotics. So we have at least 3 young people with significant arrest history. This, many say, speaking to the issue of consequence and accountability when it comes to the juvenile justice system.
It seems like there are kids slipping through those cracks.
Juveniles who are accused of committing violent crimes, like carjacking, should be detained for some period of time until their case can be adjudicated. And they're not.
Now, overall, police say juvenile arrests have risen by nearly 30% compared to this time last year. Reporting live outside police headquarters, Alexa Ashwell, Fox 45 News.
Alexa, thank you. And the youth crime crisis extends far beyond Baltimore. Fox 45 News has heard from more than a dozen top prosecutors in Maryland who are calling for change in Annapolis, saying juvenile justice laws leave their hands tied when it comes to holding young people accountable. Now, these prosecutors represent 5.4 million people. That's about 87% of the state's population. They take issue with 2 laws, the Juvenile Justice Reform Act, which prevents children under 13 from facing most criminal charges, and the Child Interrogation Protection Act, stating police cannot question any child as a suspect or witness without notifying parents and getting approval from an attorney. Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost continues our live team coverage. And Mackenzie, you just spoke with another state's attorney who is calling for change. What they have to say?
Yeah, Mary, it really comes down to prosecutors like this and others who are calling for a handful of changes to those 2 laws that you just mentioned. But so far, the public has yet to see specific plans from Democrats in charge or the governor about how they plan to address these concerns. Another armed robbery
for Eastern and Patterson, possible armed robbery
near Pedersen Park in Baltimore last week, where the suspects.
The victim is claiming that the 4 juveniles, high schoolers, dressing all black, went towards the park. They utilized a handgun.
Are juveniles. More examples of what we've been hearing from people all across the state.
Guns, carjackings, motor vehicle thefts. They've exploded.
Montgomery County State's Attorney John McCarthy has been at the forefront of the prosecutors' push for change.
We've got to look at services. We've got to look at options. We've got to look at more flexibility for probation.
In Annapolis, Senator Will Smith chairs the powerful Senate Judicial Proceedings Committee. Last week, indicating he's not on board with a full repeal of the 2 laws at the center of the juvenile crime crisis debate. One, preventing kids 13 and younger from facing nonviolent misdemeanor charges, and the other, requiring an attorney to be present during questioning of juveniles by law enforcement. Smith says the juvenile justice laws need more time to see the full results.
Laws that we put in place are going to take a couple of years to fully see the kind of the fruit of the foundations that we've laid and the seeds that we've planted. I, for one, am not interested in rolling back the reforms that we put in place last year.
McCarthy says he understands the idea behind the plans and agrees a full repeal may not be necessary. But McCarthy says there are specific changes he wants to see made and hopes Senator Smith will be on board.
Let us review all felonies. Let's address this probationary, some of these artificial limitations. Give some faith back to the judges. And I do think we are going to have a greater presence in Annapolis this year than we've had in years gone.
It seems like the issue's gotten so bad that I feel that there's going to be some sort of reform passed.
Delegate Robin Grammer, a Republican from Baltimore County, sits on the House Judiciary Committee, and he's been pushing for bigger changes and says the 2 previous committee hearings this fall have been beneficial, but it's time to see action.
People have to, frankly, stop playing so close to the chest and start having real discussions about this issue.
With just over a month until the next General Assembly session begins, lawmakers are running out of time to get a plan together before the first bell rings. Now, that House Judiciary Committee hearing that's scheduled to take place next Tuesday afternoon, and it'll happen in person. We're live in the newsroom. Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
Mackenzie, thank you. That brings us to our question of the day. Do you want your elected leaders to hold young kids accountable? To make your voice heard, head to foxbaltimore.com.
Well, juveniles are commonly seen at the center of the car theft crisis. Baltimore City has surpassed 10,000 auto thefts this year, despite the mayor and police commissioner announcing some new strategies to tackle auto thefts earlier this month. The crime doesn't seem to be going away. Olivia Dance joins us now live after speaking with victims of auto theft who are demanding the city send a stronger message to hold car thieves accountable. Olivia.
Well, Mary, we spoke with one man who had a wheel lock on his steering wheel just like this one here, and his car was still stolen over the weekend. Now, the Baltimore Police Department has given out more than 3,000 steering wheel locks just like this one here to residents, but we know that these auto thefts are still happening.
I'm the victim, but I'm being treated like the villain. I mean, these guys go around stealing these cars each and every day, tearing people's cars up, and we got to dig in our pockets for something that they done destructed. Right. It's not right. And the city needs to do something.
That was John Floyd, a Baltimore resident who had his car stolen over the weekend for the second time. The thieves weren't deterred by his steering wheel lock and security cameras. Now, according to Baltimore police data, there has been 10.3 thousand auto thefts so far this year, including attempted auto thefts. And just over a week ago, Fox 45 News employee Jimmy Mathis also had his car stolen. Police told him 3 juveniles stole his car and then crashed it. His car is currently at the city impound lot and is no longer drivable.
The city has a basic responsibility to protect its citizens. And part of that is their property. And we spend so much time focusing on violent crime, shootings, quality of life issues in the city. If you want to get people to voluntarily move back into the city, this stuff matters.
Now, Baltimore police sent us a statement this afternoon, which reads in part, BPD and Mayor Scott's administration continue to work aggressively in addressing the surge in auto thefts. This includes a 21% reduction in auto thefts in the last 28 days. Yesterday, BPD arrested 7 juveniles for auto theft related offenses. In addition to these arrests, 14 auto thefts arrests have been made in the past week. But despite their efforts, we know that auto thefts are still up this year compared to last year. For now, reporting live in Baltimore, I'm Olivia Dance, Fox 45 News.
Olivia, thank you. If you have a stolen car story or know somebody who's been impacted by the spike in auto thefts, we want to hear about it. Scan the QR code there on your screen. Tell us what happened or send an email to news@foxbaltimore.com.
New tonight, the suspected killer of a restaurant manager in Little Italy pleads guilty. In January of 2022, La Scala Italiano manager Chesley Patterson was killed on Eastern Avenue in Fells Point. Fox 45's Keith Daniels joins us live right now with the latest developments in that case against his suspected killer. Keith.
Well, Kai, we're live outside the restaurant where Patterson worked. His shooting death resonated across the community here in Little Italy, and tonight the guilty plea from his accused killer. Now, according to the Baltimore City State's Attorney's Office, Samuel Wise Jr. pleaded guilty to first-degree murder, first-degree escape, and gun charges. Now, police arrested Wise in April last year. Today, his guilty plea and prison sentence for Chelsea Patterson's murder. Patterson was the manager at the prominent La Scala restaurant in Little Italy. He was shot and killed in January 2022 during what police called a robbery spree. A surveillance camera at a corner store on Eastern Avenue captured the crime on video. In the video obtained by Fox 45 News, you see Patterson walking from his car. Then later, when he returned to his vehicle, gunshots After that, at a vigil for Patterson, loved ones expressed anger and frustration over the killing.
Yes, I'm pissed off about Chesley getting killed for no reason. But the reason I'm pissed off about him because I know him. He was close to my heart. But there's a lot of good people getting killed every day. But if you don't start doing something about that, it's never going to. It's pushing us out of the city.
Well, for the murder charge, Wise was sentenced to life with all but 50 years suspended, followed by 3 years of supervised probation when he's released. He was sentenced concurrently to 20 years and 5 years for the other 2 charges. Well, live now in Little Italy, Keith Daniels, Fox 45 News.
Keith, thank you. Still ahead tonight, a debate over raising the minimum wage for tipped workers in Baltimore. How much proposed legislation could cost you, the taxpayer?
But first, the Ravens on top of the world as they head into their bye week. How Coach Harbaugh plans to use the extra time next.
Fox 45 News, winner of 16 2022 Regional Emmy Awards, more than all other Baltimore news stations combined.
Take the rest of the week off. The best Victory Monday news for any NFL team heading into their bye week. John Harbaugh giving his first-place Ravens all week off before they get back to work next week for one of the toughest 5-game stretches to end the regular season. The break is much needed for the Ravens. Sunday Night Football against an inconsistent and desperate Chargers team could have been a trap, but the Ravens offense, they sure kept LA in the game. Only 4 for 13 on third down, 2 touchdowns thanks to rookie receiver Zay Flowers, a rare missed Justin Tucker field goal, despite the defense creating 4 turnovers for the offense. But the defense shut the door in the Ravens' 2010 win, improving the Ravens to 9-3, number 1 in the AFC right now. And they get Week 13 off, a break earned.
Seemed like the right thing. You know, we're 12 weeks into the season. Don't think we would have gained as much from practicing as we would from, resting, basically. So let the guys get away and kind of regroup, physically. even spiritually a little bit, and just heal up and get ready for what's ahead.
John Harbaugh's coaching staff is working all week. He said they may take the weekend off. And then it's back to work Monday for all. The Ravens have the Rams, Jags, 49ers, Dolphins, and Steelers to end the regular season. All teams minus LA either leading their division or in second place.
Morgan, thank you. Well, many of you are showing off your purple pride. On the left, Andrea sent us this picture of Adele cheering on the Ravens, and on the right, Adrian sent us this adorable picture of cousins Alistair and Audrey celebrating the Ravens win. And we want to see how you're cheering on the team this season. Scan the QR code there on your screen. It'll take you to our website where you can upload pictures and videos. It's all powered by Stackla.
Well, a colorful sunset right now as we take a beautiful look at the Bay Bridge in the background. That's Annapolis shoreline, and temperature of 41 degrees, clear skies, winds out of the northwest at 11 as we take the travels down to Cape St. Clair, and looks like a really beautiful end to the day, although a little chillier today. High temperatures in the 40s to near 50. This ain't nothing compared to what we're going to see by tomorrow. Some of the coldest air that we have seen, at least during the overnight, since February 4th. I took a look at some of the conditions and the records. It's been a while since it's been this cold, and it's coming. Temperature now 41 degrees at Elkton, 38 at Bel Air, 41 in Baltimore, 40 at Laurel. There, the colder 30s northwest, even some 20s up in ski country toward Oakland, where it feels like 11, feels like 27 at Cumberland. 26 at Hagerstown, wind chills on the 30s here in Baltimore. But I think our high temperatures for tomorrow have a hard time getting out of the 30s to near 40. Taking a look at the HD radar you see here around Pittsburgh, Altoona, Pennsylvania. There's some snow showers and some flurries here that are trying to make their way south and east. I don't think any of those make it toward us into tomorrow, or into the rest of today and tonight, I should say. But by tomorrow, there is a potential here that I think we could see maybe a few of those flakes making the trip up and over the Blue Ridge Mountains and across our sky. So don't be surprised, especially tomorrow afternoon, that with the cold and blustery weather, we even see a couple of flurries. Again, this is a sign of that colder air moving in, sparking up the Great Lakes waters here. The waters are in the warmer temperatures, 40s, 50s. The air that's coming over these in the 20s and 30s. So that temperature difference is what gets, of course, the lake effect snow showers and flurries going. And we could see correct atmospheric conditions to get a couple of those again over our skies into tomorrow. Nothing accumulating, but just a sign of the season. Look at those cold temperatures to our north and west, teens and 20s in the upper Midwest. And for us tonight, well down into the 20s to near 30. Probably some of the coldest weather maybe we've seen since March as we drop down into the mid-20s likely, maybe some low 20s up north and west. Here are those flurries I was talking about for tomorrow. Notice a blue descending from the north, and for at least a brief time here, somewhere about maybe say 2 to 4 or 5 o'clock, there could be a stray flurry in our forecast. High only 37 for tomorrow. That low of 21, that would be the coldest since early February around here. 40 degrees on Wednesday, then a recovery to 55 on Thursday. A few showers on Friday. Looks like a drier day Saturday, but temperatures going back to above average. That lasts all the way into early next week, but it turns unsettled again for Sunday into Monday.
Coming up, an agreement to continue the ceasefire in the Middle East. The terms of the truce as more hostages are set free.
I'm Kayla Gaskins in Washington. Coming up, we take a look at the problem some congressional Republicans have with the White House's proposal to send more money to secure the southern border.
Lawmakers returning to Washington this week after the holiday face pressure to address the White House's massive spending request for Ukraine, Israel, and the southern border. National correspondent Kayla Gaskins has details.
There's a snag holding up GOP support for the White House's latest spending proposal.
I think it'd be very difficult to get it done by the end of the year.
House Republicans like Mike Turner say money alone won't address the crisis at the southern border.
Congress is going to require that there be laws changed to make certain that the border returns to its prior state, perhaps remain in Mexico, other types of provisions that would secure the southern border.
As illegal migration at the U.S. southern border continues to surge, former President Donald Trump promising a dramatic tightening of the United States' immigration policies should he win back the White House next year.
I don't think there's ever been a country in history that's had a border where millions and millions and millions of people are flowing into our country. Nobody's ever seen anything like it.
Another illegal migration crisis unfolding in Europe, where there's increased smuggling activity and a surge of asylum seekers from war-torn areas such as Ukraine, the Middle East, and Africa.
This prompting at least 10 EU countries, including Germany, Italy, France, and Sweden, to impose checks and increased security at normally open borders. These immigration issues leading to the shocking election of far-right Geert Wilders as the new Prime Minister of the Netherlands. Wilders ran on a highly controversial proposal to bring immigration to zero.
Op één komt te staan.
Several European countries are realizing the consequences of having open borders for so many years. Self-preservation is a strong human response, and that's what we're seeing.
Support for tightening the southern border is on the rise in the U.S. Polling from the summer shows Americans who believe immigration is good for the country is at the lowest level in a decade. A separate NBC News poll from last week found 3 in 4 Americans support Congress spending more money on securing the southern border. In Washington, I'm Kayla Gaskins.
Making headlines, criminally indicted Congressman George Santos will make history if he is expelled from Congress. House lawmakers haven't expelled one of their own members in more than 2 decades. Overall, there have only been 5 expulsions in the entire history of the institution. There could be a vote by Wednesday, and so far, Republicans don't seem eager to save him.
I think you will see more and more members voting for that, and it'll be maybe a close vote, but I think he will be expelled if he doesn't resign. I hope he resigns before we get to that point.
Well, Santos's fellow Republican, Congressman Michael Guest, the Ethics Committee chair, is the one who introduced the expulsion resolution, giving it even more weight. It'll be a tough vote for some Republicans as they hold a slim House majority and will likely lose a special election race. Coming up after the break, Fox 45 News continues to investigate the Safe Streets program following multiple FBI raids. A look inside our ongoing efforts to gain more insight. Plus, 3 Palestinian-American students shot over the weekend. The efforts now from the DOJ to avoid hate crimes across the country.
Fox 45 News is following the juvenile crime crisis across Maryland.
Young people often committing violent crimes resulting in no real consequences. Police, prosecutors, and parents all joining calls to change the juvenile justice laws that they say keep authorities from holding young people accountable.
Delegate Nino Mangione from Baltimore County joins us live tonight to weigh in. Delegate Mangione, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you, Kai, for having me.
Delegate, what do you think needs to change when it comes to current juvenile justice laws?
Well, I think first and foremost, there's only one direction to go from here. The biggest change is that we need to start focusing on punishing the bad behavior. We need to stop with the excuse making. We need to stop looking to point the blame to anyone else but the criminals themselves. And we need to start guaranteeing mandatory punishments for those committing these very serious crimes. And that's juvenile or no juvenile. It has to be done. And we have an obligation, as this is the number one, as an elected official, number one priority, an obligation to push policies that result in more public safety. And there's no better message to send to potential would-be juvenile criminals than prepare to pay the price. You're no longer getting away with it. That is the message we need to send, and it needs to happen now.
Clearly, they've gotten the other message over the last year. Auto thefts, we know, are one of the crimes we are constantly seeing juveniles commit. You recently drafted a bill focusing on that very issue. What does it look to do?
So thank you, Mary. That bill that I'm putting forth basically puts stealing an automobile in the category of a violent crime. And the Republican caucus is actually working on, because in Baltimore City, this is not just juvenile, but altogether, there's been 10,000 plus auto thefts that your website just reported today. The Republican caucus is putting forth a bill that says if you commit 3 nonviolent crimes as a juvenile, for example, stealing a car, you will be put in the juvenile court system. My bill is to make it the same category as a violent crime. So they're very similar, but it's a major problem both with juvenile and adults. And what I'm doing, what the Republican caucus is doing, is trying to put forth real solutions to fix this problem.
Delegate Mangione, Senator Will Smith, who's a Democrat from Montgomery County, has indicated to us that he's not necessarily on board with repealing the entire Juvenile Justice Reform Act and the Child Interrogation Protection Act. What are your thoughts about that? And do you think there is enough support among Democrats and Republicans to make some kind of adjustments to it?
Well, I disagree. I think right now, the juveniles have no fear of consequences. And this is the fault in most cases, I would say, of lack of parenting or no parenting at all. But that's the type of mindset. What is even worse here, the Maryland legislature, the state of Maryland, because of that type of mentality, is sending the exact wrong message to youth offenders, to violent offenders in some cases, that will accept that type of behavior and will excuse it. And that's the wrong message. And it was the wrong message when we passed the bills. And it's the exact, completely wrong message to say we're not going to come back and do something about it. We predicted this type of thing would happen when we passed the bill years ago. Unfortunately, we were right. Juvenile crime is through the roof. It's a crisis. And we have to undo the damage by coming back to the table and looking at those very failed bills. We don't have to rewrite everything, but we have to at least start with the interrogation aspect of it and the part that allows 12 and 13-year-olds to steal cars 10 times and not have any type of repercussion. It's failed. Now it's time to realize we need to do something to change.
All right, we'll look for the hearing in December and, of course, what happens when you all go back to Annapolis in January. Delegate Nino Mangione, thank you for your time tonight. We appreciate it.
Thank you both. Thank you, Kai and Mary.
Thank you. Well, Safe Streets is a centerpiece of Mayor Scott's crime plan, but the program continues to face transparency questions amid an FBI investigation into several locations and employees.
And Fox 45 News is committed to investigating Safe Streets. Tonight, we're looking into what we know and what questions remain. Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost reports.
FBI agents showed up here at the Bel Air Edison Safe Street site almost a month ago to execute a search warrant. 2 employees also had the FBI show up at their homes. Now, David Caldwell, one of the leaders at this location, he's facing state-level charges, and he's on unpaid leave while his legal troubles play out. Now, the FBI isn't saying very much about the scope of this investigation, but sources close to it tell us that it's involving possible Black guerrilla family gang affiliation. And this federal investigation had us wondering, how deep does this problem go within Safe Streets? Now, BGF started inside prisons in California decades ago, but now it's well known to operate inside and outside of jails here in Maryland. Now, we have some court records showing that in 2010, BGF was working to legitimize itself. And to do that, one BGF leader got money to open a Safe Streets site, and at a different Safe Streets location, there were other BGF members working there too. But we also know that's not all. There's a list of other Safe Streets employees committing crimes. Ronald Alexander pleading guilty to federal drug possession charges and trying to use his Safe Streets employment to get out of a traffic stop with BPD. Vernon Harper, or Diddy, he pleaded guilty in October 2022 to federal drug distribution charges and again while working for Safe Streets. And in 2018, Ricky Evans admitted to using a Safe Streets site as a meeting place for BGF. In his plea agreement, he also admitted to stashing guns and drugs at that location. And then there's the case of Damon Scroggins. Ronald Brady Jr. was accused of killing Scroggins in 2019. In 2020, Brady Jr. went to trial, but it ended in a hung jury. Brady Jr. was eventually acquitted of Scroggins' murder, but Scroggins' family has some pretty harsh words for the Safe Streets program. Take a listen.
My belief is that our city government is financing a criminal enterprise. I believe that within my heart. Our city government is so invested in it that it's turning a blind eye to what it really is.
And that brings us here to City Hall and the lack of transparency from Baltimore city leaders when it comes to the Safe Streets program. Mayor Brandon Scott won't release the names of the Safe Streets workers, even though the program is funded by tax dollars. These crime issues aren't the only concern when it comes to Safe Streets. We've been asking to see the forms used by Safe Streets workers when they conduct their mediations. We also have documentation showing the program spent thousands of dollars in federal COVID money to send some workers to Los Angeles for training. And now we have some city council members calling for an audit of the mayor's Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement, but that audit has yet to happen. And now there's the issue of who's leading the agency. Right now, it's interim director Stephanie Mavronis, only because Shantae Jackson suddenly announced earlier this year she was leaving. And so far, a permanent director hasn't been named. And now we have the mayor's race. Former Mayor Sheila Dixon challenging incumbent Mayor Brandon Scott. And the two of them have very different views on the Safe Streets program right now.
I think that we need to halt the program. The biggest issue in how it got into this condition is bringing it into City Hall, into city government. It was not a part of city government.
Can't you just direct Monzi to be transparent and hand over the information for the public so they can see what's going on with their tax dollars right now?
Well, I think that Mackenzie, the voters of Baltimore voted to have audits, and they voted to have them in this way. And I can't direct the Department of Audits to do that because they don't work for me.
And that brings us to our question of the day. Should Safe Streets be put on pause until we learn more? Scan this QR code right here and let us know. We'll check back in on the results a little later in the show. In Baltimore, Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
Developing tonight, a back and forth over drafted legislation increasing minimum wage for tipped workers in Baltimore City. Fox 45's Megan Gillen speaks to a taxpayer watchdog on how much it could cost you as a taxpayer.
Legislation is now being drafted to institute a $15 per hour minimum wage for Baltimore City restaurant workers and servers. Right now, employers only pay a fraction of that, with the understanding that the pay plus tips must equal at least the state minimum wage rate. Taxpayer watchdog David Williams weighing in.
This is pretty typical with minimum wage in cities and states, is that tipped workers make a lot less than the minimum wage because they get tips. And there's been studies that show that about 90% of them actually make a lot more than the minimum wage when you factor in the tips. Now, looking at what the state is doing, I'm really concerned about what the state is doing, raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour, because employers will do one of two things. They will raise costs because that's what happens is they're going to raise prices on all the things that they have because it costs more to hire people, or they're going to hire fewer people, or they're going to let some people go. And some of these positions are the entry-level positions, right? They're not going to bring new people into their businesses. And this is even worse for restaurants because you're going to have these prices increase and you want people to go out, you want people to dine, and they're going to see an automatic increase in the cost of going out.
Williams went on to say this wage increase might actually backfire because when customers see higher prices, they could then cut back on their tips. I'm Megan Gillen, Fox 45 News.
Qatari officials say Israel and Hamas have agreed to extend their truce for 2 more days.
That agreement comes on the 4th and what would have been the final day of this ceasefire. Qatar and Egypt were key to brokering the deal. Israel has said it would extend the truce by 1 day for every 10 additional hostages released by Hamas, but pledges to continue its campaign to root out the terror group in Gaza. The war, which started with the October 7th slaughter in Israel, has resulted in thousands of Palestinian civilian deaths.
Well, dramatic images show the magnitude of the devastation in northern Gaza. Almost every building in one city in northeast Gaza is in ruins, and the streets are covered with mounds of debris. A tour of the city shows homes, schools, and hospitals obliterated by airstrikes and scorched by tank fire.
Billionaire Elon Musk paid a visit to Israel today. Musk joined Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on a tour of a town Hamas attacked on October 7th. Musk is also expected to meet with Israel's president and a member of the Israeli Special War Cabinet. The visit comes after Musk appeared to agree with a post on his social media platform X earlier this month that claimed Jewish communities pushed hatred against whites.
Well, the suspected shooter of 3 Palestinian American students now faces 3 counts of second-degree attempted murder. Authorities announced the charges during a news conference shortly after the suspect was arraigned in court. 48-year-old Jason Eaton pled not guilty to the charges.
We must, as a community and state, stand strong against hate and divisiveness. We must see the humanity in each other and unite as one community in one state that will not